I'm Emma Parker, 22 years old and the first person in my family to graduate college. After working multiple jobs for 4 years to pay tuition, my big day finally arrived. But instead of proud parents in the audience, I got a last-minute text, "Sorry, honey, the Anderson Super Bowl party was planned months ago." I walked across that stage alone, diploma in hand, smiled for the photographer, then broke down crying in the parking lot. That moment changed everything. Before I share what happened next, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. If you've ever been let down by family on your biggest day, hit subscribe and stay with me. Sometimes the most painful betrayals lead to the most beautiful beginnings. I grew up in Oakwood Heights, a middle-class suburb about 40 minutes outside of Chicago, in a 3-bedroom ranch house with fading blue paint and patchy lawn my father never quite got around to fixing. My dad, Mike, worked construction jobs that kept him busy 6 days a week during good weather months and sporadically employed during winters. Mom, Diane, worked part-time as a receptionist at a local dentist's office, though she frequently called in sick when her favorite TV shows had season finales or when her friend group planned shopping trips. Neither of my parents finished more than high school, with Dad barely graduating and Mom scraping by with C-minuses. Education was never valued in our household. Homework was something to rush through, report cards were glanced at then tossed on the counter without comment, and teacher conferences were attended only when absolutely required, with my parents checking their watches every few minutes. I was different from the start. I devoured books by flashlight under my covers, created science projects without any help, and pushed myself to earn straight A's despite zero encouragement from home. The pattern started early. In 3rd grade, I won the science fair with a project on plant photosynthesis I'd worked on for weeks, but neither parent showed up because Dad had a poker game and Mom didn't want to drive in light rain. In middle school, when I made honor roll every quarter, they skipped the recognition ceremony because their favorite restaurant was having a 2-for-1 special that same night. High school brought more of the same. When I was named valedictorian, they complained about having to sit through a boring ceremony rather than expressing pride. I remember rehearsing my college application essays at our kitchen table while Mom watched reality TV at full volume in the adjacent living room, occasionally yelling at me to keep my voice down. Despite everything, I was determined to break the cycle. I applied to 17 colleges in secret, using fee waivers my guidance counselor helped me find, and when acceptance letters arrived, I hid them in a shoebox under my bed. The day Northwestern University offered me a partial academic scholarship was the first time I allowed myself to truly hope. I rehearsed how I'd tell my parents for hours, practicing responses to their inevitable skepticism. That night, I announced my acceptance over dinner, explaining how the scholarship would cover 60% of tuition. Dad kept eating his meatloaf, barely looking up. College is a waste of money. My buddy's son went for 2 years, and now he's managing the same grocery store he could have worked at right out of high school. Mom at least pretended to be happy, though her first question was whether I'd be commuting so I could continue helping with housework. I spent the next 3 months convincing them college wouldn't bankrupt us, researching student loans myself, applying for every scholarship I could find, and promising I'd work part-time throughout. When move-in day came, Dad helped load my few belongings into our aging minivan, but complained about gas prices the entire 2-hour drive. Mom reminded me 4 times not to waste money on university-branded clothing, because regular clothes are the same thing without the logo. They dropped me off at my dorm with a quick hug and were gone before I'd finished paperwork at the check-in desk, eager to beat weekend traffic back to the suburbs. Standing in my empty half of the dorm room, that August afternoon, I promised myself I'd make every sacrifice worth it. Those 4 years at Northwestern tested every ounce of my determination. First semester freshman year hit like a tidal wave. The academic rigor was beyond anything I'd experienced, with professors who assigned hundreds of pages of reading, weekly and expected thoughtful participation from everyone. Within 2 weeks, I secured a job at the campus cafe, working 30 hours weekly while carrying a full course load. My schedule became a military operation. Classes from morning until mid-afternoon, cafe shifts until closing, then studying until 2 a.m. in the library before starting again. My roommate Lily, a business major from Seattle with emerald green highlights in her dark hair, initially thought I was antisocial until she realized I simply couldn't afford downtime. "You work harder than anyone I've ever met," she said one night, finding me half asleep over economics textbooks. She became my first real friend there, forcing me to take occasional study breaks and leaving encouraging sticky notes on my desk during finals week. I joined a study group with 3 other scholarship students: Jamal, a pre-med student who memorized flashcards on the bus; Tina, a future engineer who could explain calculus concepts like she was telling an interesting story; and Vince, and Bao, accounting major who organized our weekly meetups with color-coded schedules. We bonded over shared financial anxieties and celebrated each other's small victories. My parents rarely entered this new world. During freshman year, I called home weekly, eager to share my experiences. When I excitedly told Mom about acing my first university-level economics exam, she interrupted with a 10-minute story about neighborhood gossip. Dad's responses to my academic achievements were typically, "That's nice," or "Don't let it go to your head." Their questions focused exclusively on whether I was spending too much or if I could send money home for unexpected car repairs. By sophomore year, our calls dwindled to monthly checkups that left me emotionally drained. I added a second job as a research assistant for Professor Bennett in the economics department, which meant transcribing interviews and organizing data 20 hours weekly on top of my cafe shifts and coursework. I subsisted on cafe leftovers and ramen noodles, calculating the exact minimum grocery budget to avoid malnutrition. Junior year, despite my schedule, I joined the First Generation College Students Association, eventually becoming its treasurer. We organized networking events and created a mentorship program, pairing freshmen with upperclassmen who understood their unique challenges. Through bloodshot eyes and perpetual exhaustion, I maintained my GPA above 3.8, making the dean's list every semester. My parents visited campus exactly twice in 4 years, once during freshman orientation because it was required, and once sophomore year when they were driving through Chicago to visit my dad's cousin. Both times they complained about parking costs, rushed through campus tours, and asked when I'd be finishing so I could get a real job. Meanwhile, I watched Lily's parents mail her care packages monthly and drive 6 hours to attend her minor performances in campus theater productions. Jamal's mother called him daily, asking detailed questions about his classes and sending him encouraging texts before each difficult exam. The contrast twisted something in my chest, though I pushed the feeling away, focusing on building my own chosen family. By senior year, I'd secured a prestigious internship with a tech startup in downtown Chicago. Those 20 weekly hours on top of my other 2 jobs meant I slept about 4 hours nightly, but the connections proved invaluable. My supervisor became a mentor who eventually offered me a full-time position at their Seattle headquarters after graduation. When I shared this news with my parents during Thanksgiving break, Dad asked, "Why would you move so far away just for a job?" And Mom complained about Seattle's constant rain. As graduation approached, I tried pushing away creeping anxiety about whether they'd actually attend. "Of course we'll be there," Mom assured me in January. We wouldn't miss our only daughter's big day. I desperately wanted to believe her. Spring semester senior year became a blur of thesis completion, job preparation, and graduation planning. My economics thesis analyzing impact investment strategies in developing markets consumed most of my waking hours, with Professor Bennett pushing me to make it publication-worthy. Simultaneously, my future employer sent weekly onboarding paperwork and training materials, expecting me to complete them alongside my academic responsibilities. Despite everything, anticipatory joy about graduation sustained me. After 17 years of education, thousands of hours studying and working, and countless sacrifices, I would walk across that stage as the first Parker to earn a college degree. 3 months before the ceremony, I mailed formal graduation announcements to my small circle, including an embossed invitation for my parents with ceremony details, campus maps, and nearby restaurant recommendations. Mom called after receiving it unusually enthusiastic. "We've already requested time off work. Dad's even planning to rent a nicer car for the drive-up." This unexpected excitement released tension I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. I immediately booked them a reasonably priced hotel room close to campus, putting the $379 charge on my nearly maxed credit card as an investment in making the weekend special. I reserved a table at Osteria Laguna, an Italian restaurant just fancy enough to feel celebratory without being ostentatious, calculating I could cover dinner if I worked double shifts at the cafe for 2 weekends. Each Sunday night, I called home with graduation updates, counting down the weeks. Just 7 more weeks, can you believe it? Then, only 30 days now. Mom always responded affirmatively, though I noticed her enthusiasm waning slightly with each call. 6 weeks out, she mentioned a potential work conflict for Dad but assured me he'd figure it out. 1 month before, when I called to confirm their hotel reservation details, Mom answered distractedly, asking me to call back later because she was watching a season finale. 5 weeks before graduation, Northwestern sent an email about ordering caps and gowns. I splurged on the higher quality photographs package, imagining the professional shot of me flanked by my proud parents becoming their first framed college memory of me. I ordered 3 ceremony tickets, 1 for each parent and a spare for emergencies, paying the campus printing office to create a decorative holder for them. 2 weeks before the ceremony, during our weekly call, Mom casually mentioned something that stopped my heart. By the way, honey, there might be a little conflict with your graduation weekend. The Andersons always host this amazing Super Bowl party, and they specifically asked if we'd come this year. I told them we have your thing that weekend, but Linda said they're making Dad's favorite buffalo chicken dip, and everyone from the neighborhood will be there. I sat on my dorm room floor, phone pressed to my ear, struggling to process her words. My graduation wasn't just on Super Bowl weekend. It was scheduled for noon on Sunday, hours before any game would start. Mom, the ceremony is at noon. The Super Bowl doesn't start until after 6 p.m. You could easily do both, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. Oh, but the Andersons' pre-party starts at 2, and it's almost an hour drive back from your school. We'd have to rush, and you know how traffic gets, she replied. Plus, we'd miss the commercials, which are the best part. My chest tightened as I realized she was actually weighing these options as if they were equivalent. Mom, this is my college graduation. I've worked 4 years for this. I'm the first person in our family to graduate. Please tell me you're not seriously considering skipping it for a party you could attend any year. Her sigh carried through the phone. Don't. Be dramatic, Emma. We'll try to make both work, okay? Let me talk to your father and figure something out. That night, I barely slept, staring at the ceiling as anxiety gnawed at my stomach. The week before graduation, I texted daily confirmation requests, receiving increasingly delayed and non-committal responses. I picked up my cap and gown, running my fingers over the smooth fabric while blinking back tears in the campus store. I confirmed my restaurant reservation, reducing it from 4 people to possibly 3. The day before graduation, I cleaned my apartment, prepared a simple breakfast for the morning, and laid out my dress and shoes. My phone remained ominously silent until 10:37 p.m. when it finally rang. Mom's voice came through with forced cheerfulness. Hi, sweetie, listen, I'm so sorry, but we've decided we just can't make it tomorrow. Your dad threw his back out lifting something heavy, and I'd have to drive alone, and you know how I hate highway driving. Plus, the Andersons are really counting on us bringing the layered taco dip, and Linda would be so disappointed. Each word felt like a physical blow. You're not coming at all? I whispered. It's just one ceremony, honey. They're all the same. Boring speeches and everyone wearing the same outfit. We're really proud of you, you know that. Maybe you can take a video for us? Or see if they sell DVDs of it. I hung up shortly after, unable to continue the conversation through my tears. Sitting alone in my apartment, graduation gown hanging. On my closet door, I allowed myself 30 minutes of sobbing before setting my alarm. Tomorrow would come regardless. Graduation morning dawned bright and clear, early May sunshine streaming through my bedroom blinds as my alarm chirped at 7 a.m. My phone screen showed congratulatory texts from Lily, Jamal, and Professor Bennett, but nothing from my parents. I forced down half a piece of toast while getting ready, my stomach too knotted for proper breakfast. The apartment felt unnaturally quiet as I zipped my dress, applied minimal makeup, and carefully positioned my cap, securing it with extra bobby pins against the spring breeze. Standing before the mirror in my black graduation gown, tassel hanging correctly from the right side, I practiced smiling until it almost looked natural. One last desperate attempt, I called both parents' numbers, reaching voicemail each time. I left a simple message. It's graduation day. The ceremony starts at noon. I saved you seats. Please come. The university had transformed the main quad into a sea of white folding chairs facing an elevated stage adorned with purple Northwestern banners. Students clustered in nervous, excited groups, adjusting each other's caps and taking photos. Everywhere I looked, proud families embraced graduates, fathers straightening sons' ties, mothers dabbing tears while positioning themselves for perfect pictures. Grandparents hobbled across the lawn with canes and walkers, determined to witness their grandchildren's achievement regardless of physical discomfort. Siblings wore t-shirts with graduates' faces printed on them, holding handmade signs and flower bouquets. I clutched my empty graduation ticket holder, scanning the growing crowd for familiar faces that wouldn't appear. Lily spotted me standing alone and rushed over, her parents following with warm smiles. "Emma, my parents brought you a graduation lei too." She draped the fragrant white flowers around my neck as her mother hugged me impulsively. "We're so proud of you, honey. Lily tells us how hard you've worked." Their kindness nearly broke my composure. I thanked them, making excuses about my parents running late before escaping to the graduate check-in area. We filed into alphabetical order, Professor Martinez helping straighten our lines as we prepared to process in. I kept glancing back at the family seating area, heart jumping whenever I saw someone with my mother's hair color or my father's build, then sinking again with each mistaken identity. The ceremony began with pomp and circumstance echoing across the quad as we marched to our seats. Throughout the university president's welcome and the keynote speaker's address, I continued searching the crowd, squinting against the sunlight to examine each late arrival. As the economics department graduates were called, my brow stood and moved toward the stage steps. 4 people ahead of me, my phone vibrated in the pocket I'd sewn inside my gown. Pulling it out quickly, I saw a Facebook notification. My mother had posted new photos tagged Anderson Super Bowl pre-party prep, showing our kitchen counter covered with snack platters and beer coolers. Timestamp? 18 minutes ago. I shoved the phone away as my name echoed through the speakers. Emma Louise Parker, Bachelor of Science in Economics, summa cum laude. Walking across that stage took every ounce of strength I possessed. I shook the dean's hand, accepted my diploma case, and smiled for the photographer as instructed, hearing only scattered applause where other graduates had received enthusiastic cheers. From the corner of my eye, I spotted Lily and her parents, standing, clapping vigorously from their seats. Jamal's entire extended family whistled from the back row. I returned to my seat, diploma clutched tightly, breathing slowly to control tears threatening to escape. After the ceremony ended and mortarboards flew skyward, the quad transformed into a celebration zone. Families swarmed graduates, cameras flashed continuously, and laughter mingled with happy tears. I stood awkwardly at the periphery, watching the scene unfold like a movie I wasn't cast in. Lily found me quickly, insisting I join her family photos. "Get in here, Parker. You're honorary family today." Her father positioned me beside Lily. Her mother straightened my honors cords, and they took several shots before handing me their contact information to receive the pictures later. Jamal's mother pressed a card into my hand with a generous gift card inside, whispering that she was so impressed with anyone graduating debt-free through hard work. Their kindness, while genuine, highlighted the absence I couldn't ignore. After 30 minutes of forced smiles and declining various family lunch invitations, I made excuses about meeting my parents elsewhere. Walking rapidly across campus toward the parking lot, vision blurring, I barely made it to my car before the first sob escaped. Sitting behind the wheel of my 15-year-old Honda, still wearing my graduation gown, I finally released the grief I'd been holding back. Tears streamed down my face as I pounded the steering wheel, years of disappointment culminating in this ultimate rejection. Between gasping breaths, I scrolled through my phone to find another photo my mother had posted, a selfie with neighborhood friends, red plastic cups raised toward the camera, captioned, "Super Bowl Sunday is better than any ceremony." The timestamp showed it was posted during the exact moment I'd walked across the stage. Something broke inside me then. Some final thread of hope that perhaps they had cared all along but simply showed it differently. Wiping mascara from my cheeks with my graduation gown sleeve, I started the car and drove away from campus, leaving behind both my university years and my illusions about family. Sunday evening found me alone in my apartment, surrounded by half-packed moving boxes, takeout containers from the celebratory dinner Lily had insisted on bringing me before leaving with her parents. I'd smiled through our meal, assuring her I was fine, that I understood my parents' absence, that I wasn't really that upset. The moment her car pulled away, my carefully maintained facade crumbled. I spent hours alternating between crying and staring blankly at the wall, replaying not just this disappointment, but years of similar moments. Elementary school art shows, where my drawing hung unviewed, high school awards nights when I accepted certificates while scanning empty audience chairs, college acceptance letters met with indifference. Sleep came in fitful bursts, interrupted by dreams where I walked across endless stages looking for faces that never appeared. Monday morning, my phone chimed with a text from Mom. "How did your graduation thing go? Did they take good pictures?" No acknowledgement of their absence, no apology, not even a congratulations. I typed and deleted a dozen responses before settling on, "It was important to me. I really wanted you and Dad there. It hurt that you chose a party instead." Her response came quickly. "Don't be so sensitive. These ceremonies are all the same anyway. Your cousin Becky skipped her own graduation because they're so boring. It's just walking across a stage, not like you performed brain surgery." Anyway, the party was really fun. The Andersons had this amazing 7-layer dip. I set my phone down, too emotionally exhausted to explain why her response deepened rather than healed the wound. Tuesday and Wednesday passed in a blur of apartment cleaning, donation sorting, and job preparation. My parents didn't call, and I lacked the energy to reach out. On Thursday afternoon, 3 days after graduation, my phone displayed my father's number, the first time he'd called directly in months. A small, foolish hope flickered in my chest. Perhaps they'd realized their mistake. Maybe they were finally calling to apologize, to acknowledge the milestone they'd missed. I answered with cautious optimism. "Hi, Dad." "Hey, kiddo," he replied, using the childhood nickname that had once made me feel special. "Your mother and I were talking, and we wanted to check in on you. Getting all settled with that new job?" The conversation started normally enough. Surface-level questions about my apartment, when I'd be moving, whether Seattle weather would bother me. I began to relax slightly, telling myself perhaps this was their way of making amends. Then came the pivot I should have anticipated. "So listen, Emma. The real reason I'm calling is we've got a bit of a situation at home. The dishwasher flooded the kitchen floor yesterday, and when the plumber came, he found all kinds of issues with the pipes. Turns out we need about $3,000 worth of repairs, and our credit cards are maxed out right now." The familiar sinking feeling returned to my stomach as he continued. "We figured since you'll be starting that fancy job soon, maybe you could help your old man out with a loan. You can probably get one of those low-interest graduate loans or something, right? We'd pay you back eventually, of course." I sat on my bed, stunned into silence. Not only had they missed the most important day of my academic life for a party, but their first contact afterward was to ask for money. No congratulations, no acknowledgement of my achievement. Just another withdrawal from an emotional bank account that had been in overdraft for years. "Emma, you still there?" Dad prompted. "I'm here," I replied quietly. "I'm just surprised. I haven't even started my job yet. I don't get my first paycheck for almost a month, and I have to pay first and last month's rent on a Seattle apartment, plus moving expenses." "Well, your mother mentioned you got some graduation money from relatives. Maybe you could use that? After everything we've done for you, putting a roof over your head all those years, it seems like you could help out the family a little. That's what family does." My throat tightened. I need to think about it. I'll call you back." I hung up before he could pressure me further, then sat motionless, phone clutched in my hand. The sheer audacity of their request crystallized. Years of similar patterns I'd normalized or excused. Growing up, I'd interpreted their behavior as busy parents doing their best. In college, I told myself they simply didn't understand academia. Now, with painful clarity, I recognized the one-way nature of our relationship. I was expected to accommodate their needs while mine remained permanently secondary. The next morning, I called the University Counseling Center, where graduating. Seniors still had access to services for 1 month post-graduation. The counselor, Dr. Martinez, listened attentively as I described both the graduation absence and the financial request. "Emma, what you're describing sounds like a pattern of emotional neglect," she said gently. "Your feelings of hurt and betrayal are completely valid. The question now is what boundaries you need to set for your own well-being." We discussed healthy family dynamics versus obligation-based relationships, the difference between helping family and enabling harmful patterns. For the first time, I verbalized a thought that had lurked beneath the surface for years. Perhaps maintaining close ties with my parents wasn't mandatory. Perhaps distance, both geographic and emotional, might be the healthiest choice. Dr. Martinez helped me draft scripts for setting boundaries, emphasizing that I shouldn't make decisions from guilt or obligation. As I left her office, phone notification showing 3 missed calls from my mother, I felt the weight of an imminent decision. Would I continue the cycle of disappointment and one-sided giving, or would I finally prioritize my own well-being? That night became one of the longest of my life, sleeplessness punctuated by racing thoughts and unexpected tears. I lay awake replaying the counseling session, mentally cataloging every significant parental disappointment from my childhood through graduation. Around 3 a.m., I found myself creating a balance sheet in my economics-trained mind. Emotional investments versus returns, patterns of behavior, predictive indicators for future interactions. By dawn, exhaustion had cleared away any remaining illusions. I'd spent my entire life seeking approval from people constitutionally incapable of providing it. My laptop glowed in the pre-dawn darkness as I researched one-way flights to Seattle. My new job wasn't scheduled to begin for 3 weeks, but the company had mentioned flexibility. An early morning email to my future supervisor, Natalie, explained my situation in professional terms. Due to unexpected changes in my housing situation, I'm wondering if it might be possible to start slightly earlier than our agreed-upon date. Her response arrived while I was showering. "Absolutely. We'd love to have you sooner. We offer 2 weeks of corporate housing for relocating employees. Let me know your preferred arrival date, and I'll make arrangements." A strange lightness filled my chest, the sensation of chains loosening. I opened my banking app, reviewing my meager savings, $1,237 in my checking account, plus $820 in graduation gifts from relatives and professors. Combined with the corporate housing offer, it would be enough for a security deposit and modest furniture. I booked a one-way ticket to Seattle for the following Tuesday, the soonest date that allowed me to properly pack and ship my belongings. The ticket confirmation email felt like a declaration of independence. Lily returned from her family's post-graduation trip that afternoon. I explained my accelerated plans over coffee at our kitchen counter. "Wow, that's fast," she said, eyes widening. "But honestly, after what your parents did, I completely understand you wanting a fresh start." She helped me research shipping options for my books and winter clothes, offering to store anything I couldn't immediately take. "What about your parents?" she eventually asked. "Have you told them?" I shook my head. "I'm going to text them once. Everything's finalized. I'm not ready for another phone call right now." That evening, I composed the hardest message I'd ever written. "Mom and Dad, I've decided to move to Seattle next week to start my new position earlier than planned. I'm not in a financial position to help with the house repairs. I need some space to process everything, including your absence at graduation. I'll send my new address once I'm settled." Their response came within minutes, my mother calling. Repeatedly, my father sending increasingly agitated texts. "This is how you treat family? After everything we've done for you? You're being selfish and ungrateful." The final message struck deepest. "If you leave like this, don't expect us to welcome you back when that job doesn't work out." For the first time, their words didn't devastate me. Instead, they confirmed I was making the right choice. I silenced notifications from their numbers and focused on packing, sorting through 4 years of college life, deciding what deserved space in my new beginning. The weekend passed in a flurry of activity, donating furniture to incoming international students, shipping 8 boxes of books and winter clothes, cleaning my apartment to ensure full security deposit return. Lily and our friend group organized an impromptu goodbye dinner Sunday night at our favorite pizza place. "To Emma," Jamal toasted, raising his soda glass, "who's brave enough to chase her dreams 3,000 miles away." Tina presented me with a Seattle guidebook, each friend having marked their recommended spots in different colored highlighters. Vince had created a detailed spreadsheet of Seattle neighborhoods with cost of living comparisons. These people, who'd shown up for my presentations, celebrated my achievements, supported my challenges, represented what real support looked like. That night, as I prepared to sleep on a borrowed air mattress in my empty bedroom, I unblocked my parents' numbers long enough to send one final message. I'm leaving Tuesday morning. I need time and space to build my own life. I'll reach out when I'm ready. Then I turned off my phone completely, unwilling to let their response affect my resolve. Monday brought final errands, closing my local bank account, picking up my official diploma from campus administration, getting a haircut for job interviews. I walked through campus one last time, saying goodbye to classrooms where I'd discovered my academic passion and the library corners where I'd studied through countless nights. Standing before the economics building, I silently thanked Professor Bennett for believing in my potential when I'd barely believed in myself. Making a run for it, huh? The voice behind me belonged to Professor Bennett herself, campus coffee in hand, observing me with knowing eyes. Starting fresh, I corrected, managing a smile. Seattle's lucky to get you, Parker. I've recommended plenty of students to companies over the years, but few with your determination. She handed me her business card with a personal email written on the back. Keep in touch. I expect great things. Her simple acknowledgement of my worth felt more validating than any recognition my parents could have offered. Tuesday morning arrived with unexpected clarity. I woke before my alarm, packed my remaining possessions into 2 suitcases, and called a rideshare to the airport. As the car pulled away from my apartment building, I didn't look back. The university campus, the coffee shop where I'd worked, countless shifts, the economics building where I'd discovered my passion, all receded in the rear window. Ahead lay uncertainty, yes, but also possibility unshackled from expectations I could never meet. My phone remained off until I reached my gate at O'Hare Airport. When I finally powered it on, dozens of notifications appeared, mostly supportive, messages from friends, but also several missed calls from my parents. I deleted their voicemails without listening. As boarding began for my flight to Seattle, I posted a simple social media update. Today marks the beginning of a new chapter, Seattle bound. The accompanying photo showed only my hand holding my boarding pass, engagement ring conspicuously absent from my finger. I'd returned it to Jason 3 days earlier, another difficult but necessary unburdening. As the plane accelerated down the runway, I felt myself lifting not just physically but emotionally, rising above patterns too deeply entrenched to change, soaring toward a horizon where I could finally define success on my own terms. The plane touched down at SeaTac Airport under typical Pacific Northwest skies, pearlescent gray clouds occasionally parting to reveal stunning mountain views before closing again like theater curtains. With just 2 suitcases containing my most essential belongings, I navigated to ground transportation feeling strangely unburdened. My company-arranged car service driver held a sign reading, Parker Technovate Inc., the first time I'd seen my name displayed with professional recognition. The driver, Amara, chatted amiably during our 40-minute journey downtown, pointing out landmarks and offering practical tips about Seattle living. First time in the city? She asked, meeting my eyes in the rearview mirror. First time starting? Completely fresh, I replied, watching raindrops race down the window glass. The corporate apartment exceeded my expectations. A furnished studio on the 15th floor of a downtown high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay. The kitchenette contained basic cookware and a welcome basket with Seattle, coffee, artisan chocolate, and a handwritten note from Natalie. Welcome to Seattle and Technovate. Can't wait to have you on board. I spent that first evening unpacking my limited possessions and watching ferries cross the water against the backdrop of a spectacular sunset that painted the sky in gradient shades of orange and purple. My phone occasionally lit up with texts from college friends checking on my arrival, but nothing from my parents since I'd blocked their numbers before departure. The silence felt simultaneously liberating and terrifying. My first day at Technovate began with new hire orientation, where I met 4 other recent graduates joining various departments. The company culture immediately struck me as different from previous workplaces. The CEO personally welcomed each new employee, sharing the company's origin story and vision with genuine enthusiasm. My department manager, Corinne, spent an hour discussing my role as a financial analyst, emphasizing growth opportunities rather than just immediate responsibilities. My desk featured a small welcome pack with company-branded items and a list of lunch spots within walking distance. First week tradition, new hires don't eat alone, explained Jordan, a fellow analyst who joined the company 6 months earlier. Tall with curly black hair and rectangular glasses, Jordan appointed himself my unofficial Seattle guide. Mandatory coffee run at 3 when the afternoon slump hits, he informed me, stopping by my desk precisely at 3 each day that first week. Through Jordan, I met other young professionals in the building. Aisha from marketing, who organized weekend hiking trips. Marcus from IT, who ran a board game night. Deepika from legal, who taught yoga classes Saturday mornings. I initially declined their invitations using apartment hunting as my excuse, but Jordan persisted. Seattle's a hard city to crack socially, he warned over Friday lunch. Rain keeps people indoors half the year. If you don't make connections now, winter gets lonely. Recognizing wisdom in his warning, I joined their Saturday exploration of Pike Place Market, discovering food stalls and artisan shops while learning Seattle's intricate neighborhood geography. My temporary housing arrangement gave me 2 weeks to find permanent accommodation. Evenings and the first weekend became dedicated to apartment hunting in neighborhoods Jordan had recommended. Capitol Hill attracted me with its vibrant energy and walkability, though prices initially seemed daunting. A stroke of luck came when Deepika mentioned her building had a vacancy. A small one-bedroom in a 1920s brick building with character details like crown molding and hardwood floors. The location allowed me to walk to work, saving transportation costs, and the landlord proved flexible on deposit timing when I explained my new job situation. Moving in required creative budgeting. I purchased only essential furniture from secondhand stores and discount retailers, creating a spare but functional space that felt entirely mine. My parents' attempts at contact continued sporadically. Text messages alternating between guilt tactics, "Can't believe you'd abandon your family like this," and financial pressure, "The plumber needs payment by Friday." Each message I read, but didn't respond to, strengthened my resolve. With Dr. Martinez's counseling guidance still fresh, I practiced setting mental boundaries even when physical ones were in place. 1 month into Seattle, life came a significant milestone, my first proper paycheck. The direct deposit notification on my phone represented more than financial compensation. It symbolized independence earned through years of sacrifice and determination. That evening, I walked to a local bank branch and opened both checking and savings accounts, allocating 15% of my income to emergency savings, rather than sending money home as I'd always assumed I would. Following my onboarding session, with HR, I also enrolled in the company's 401k plan with maximum matching contribution, something my parents had always dismissed as money you won't see until you're too old to enjoy it. 3-month performance reviews arrived faster than expected. Sitting in Corinne's office, I nervously awaited feedback on my initial projects and analyses. "I'm impressed, Emma," she began, referencing specific reports I'd compiled. "You have exceptional attention to detail while still maintaining big-picture perspective. That's rare in new analysts." The conversation concluded with unexpected news: a small role expansion and corresponding salary adjustment. "We typically don't revisit compensation until the 6-month mark, but your work quality warrants acceleration," Corinne explained. Walking back to my desk, I fought the urge to call my parents with this achievement. Their validation, I reminded myself, had always come with conditions I could never quite meet. Instead, I texted Jordan and my growing friend circle, who celebrated with impromptu happy hour drinks after work. My apartment gradually transformed from merely functional to genuinely personal. Weekend flea market visits yielded affordable artwork for previously bare walls. A small secondhand bookshelf began filling with economics texts and fiction recommendations from colleagues. I hung twinkle lights around my bedroom window and splurged on quality bedding, small luxuries previously deemed unnecessary. On my nightstand sat the only physical reminder of Northwestern, a framed photo of graduation day with Lily and her parents, my departmental honors cords visible against black robes. My parents remained conspicuously absent from my displayed memories, existing only in the occasional thoughts I couldn't entirely banish. 6 months into Seattle life, during a Sunday morning walk through my neighborhood's farmers market, realization, struck with unexpected clarity, I felt genuinely happy. Not the conditional happiness I'd always pursued through achievement or validation, but contentment rooted in daily experiences, morning coffee at my window, watching ferries cross the Sound, stimulating work challenges, growing friendships with people who appreciated me without agenda. The life I was building aligned with my values rather than expectations imposed by others. That evening, I wrote in my journal, "Home isn't necessarily where you're from. Sometimes it's where you finally feel permission to become yourself." 6 months and 3 weeks into my Seattle life, an unexpected name illuminated my phone screen during a Tuesday morning meeting: Mom. I excused myself, heart racing, and stepped into the hallway. Answering felt like reopening a healing wound, but silence wasn't sustainable forever. "Hello?" I answered cautiously. "Emma? Is that really you?" Mom's voice sounded simultaneously familiar and foreign. "We weren't sure you'd pick up. It's been so long." Small talk followed, awkward exchanges about Seattle weather, my apartment, their home repairs apparently completed through a neighbor's connection. Then came the announcement. "Your father and I have been talking. We want to visit you in Seattle next month. We found reasonably priced flights." The statement landed like a boulder in still water, rippling through my carefully constructed piece. "Visit? Here?" I managed, mind racing through implications. "Why now?" "You're our daughter, Emma. We miss you. And we've never seen Seattle." Something in her tone, the carefully casual mention of missing me sandwiched between practical details, triggered old suspicions. "I'd need to check my work schedule," I stalled. "I'm pretty busy with projects right now." Several more calls followed over subsequent days, each increasing the pressure subtly. "We've already looked at hotels," Dad mentioned. "Though they're awfully expensive in the city, maybe we could stay with you?" I held firm on separate accommodations, recommending a moderately priced hotel near Pike Place. Eventually, we settled on dates 3 weeks away, a Friday through Monday visit that would minimize my needed time off work. I spent those intervening weeks in a state of anxious preparation, both practical and emotional. Jordan listened patiently to my concerns over lunch. "Just remember, this is your territory now," he advised. "You get to set the terms." My therapist, Dr. Chen, whom I'd been seeing bi-weekly since month 2 in Seattle, helped me establish boundaries and rehearse responses to potential triggers. The morning of their arrival, I cleaned my apartment needlessly. They wouldn't be staying there, yet old habits resurfaced automatically. I met them at their hotel lobby, the first in-person contact in over 7 months. Mom looked older somehow. More lines around her eyes, hair colored a shade too dark for her complexion. Dad had gained weight, his familiar company polo straining across his middle. Awkward hugs followed, then immediate complaints about their flight delay, the hotel check-in process, Seattle's confusing one-way streets. "This hotel is highway robbery," Dad grumbled while arranging his keycard and wallet. $200. A night for a room barely bigger than your bedroom at home. We could have saved all that money staying with you. Mom elbowed him subtly but agreed. "It is awfully expensive just for sleeping." Old patterns emerged instantly. Their expectations that I'd manage their experience, absorb their complaints, prioritize their comfort above all else. I suggested a late lunch at a nearby restaurant known for Pacific Northwest specialties, hoping shared food might ease tensions. Throughout the meal, they peppered me with surface-level questions about my job without seeming to register my answers, interrupting explanations of financial analysis models to comment on menu prices or nearby diners' conversations. When the check arrived, Dad pointedly waited until I reached for it. "Well, you're the one with the fancy corporate job now," he said with a tight smile. The next day included standard tourist activities: Pike Place Market, the Space Needle, a harbor cruise. Each venue prompted similar reactions: complaints about prices, crowds, weather that wasn't quite perfect. My apartment tour elicited scrutiny rather than appreciation. "This is what you pay 4 times our mortgage for?" Mom asked, examining my modest space. "And you don't even have a proper dining table." Dad opened my refrigerator without asking, commenting on my expensive organic food with disapproval. Dinner that evening at a mid-range restaurant downtown marked the inevitable turning point. After ordering, Mom casually mentioned, "Exciting. Opportunities back home," they wanted to discuss. Dad leaned forward, lowering his voice conspiratorially. Johnson from my construction crew. You remember him? His brother-in-law is starting a property development company. They're looking for investors. Initial buy-in is just $5,000, but the returns could be massive. My stomach tightened as he continued. We figured with your financial background, you'd recognize a good opportunity. Plus, you could advise us on the paperwork side. The truth crystallized with painful clarity. This visit wasn't about reconciliation, but fundraising. The realization should have hurt more than it did. Instead, I felt strangely calm, as though final confirmation of a long-suspected diagnosis brought relief rather than shock. So this visit is about money? I asked directly, interrupting his investment pitch. Both looked genuinely surprised at my bluntness. Of course not, Mom protested. We came to see you. This is just something we thought might interest you. Really? I maintained steady eye contact. Because you haven't asked a single question about my life here. You haven't commented on my promotion or asked about my friends or shown interest in anything I'm building, but you've complained about prices constantly and now you're asking for investment money. Dad's expression hardened. That's completely unfair. We flew across the country to see you after you abandoned us without a word. I sent multiple messages before leaving. You missed my college graduation for a Super Bowl party, then immediately asked me for money. Saying these truths, aloud in a public place, felt simultaneously terrifying and liberating. We're your parents, Mom hissed, glancing around to ensure neighboring tables couldn't hear. You owe us respect, if nothing else. Respect is earned, I replied quietly. It requires mutual consideration. I respect myself enough now to recognize when I'm being used. Dad pushed back his chair abruptly. If that's how you feel about family, maybe we made a mistake coming here. I nodded slowly. Maybe you did. I signaled the waiter for the check, paid it without discussion, and walked out into the rainy Seattle evening alone. Back in my apartment, shaking with adrenaline, I received a barrage of text messages. How dare you embarrass us like that? After everything we've sacrificed for you. The final message held familiar, manipulative weight. We need a ride to the airport tomorrow morning since we can't afford Seattle's outrageous taxi prices. My response was simple. There's a light rail station 3 blocks from your hotel that goes directly to the airport. It costs $3.25 per person. I silenced notifications afterward, made myself tea, and stood at my window watching fairy lights cross the darkened Sound. The next morning, my parents checked out a day early, sending a final message that they were changing their flights to return home immediately since, clearly, you don't want us here. No contact followed for several weeks, the longest complete. Silent since my move. When my mother finally texted again with a terse, "We arrived home safely despite the inconvenience," I responded with equal brevity. "Glad you arrived safely." That exchange marked a turning point. Not the reconciliation they'd potentially envisioned, nor the complete severance I'd occasionally considered, but a distant relationship conducted on new terms. The visit, painful as it was, had clarified something essential. I could acknowledge my parents as part of my history without allowing them to determine my future. Exactly 1 year after graduation, I celebrated by taking a solo day trip to Mount Rainier National Park. The timing felt significant. 12 months since walking across that stage alone. 12 months of building independence 3,000 miles from where my story began. The mountain revealed itself intermittently through cloud breaks as I hiked the Skyline Trail, its massive presence simultaneously humbling and inspiring. Sitting on a rock outcropping overlooking vast wilderness, I reflected on my journey. Not just geographic relocation, but emotional evolution. The weekly therapy sessions with Dr. Chen had gradually tapered to bi-weekly, then monthly check-ins. Through her guidance, I'd begun unpacking childhood patterns of seeking approval from sources constitutionally incapable of providing it. The hardest grief, she'd explained during one particularly breakthrough session, isn't losing what you had, but losing what you never had, and finally accepting you never will. This concept, mourning the supportive parents I'd never actually had rather than the real ones I'd left behind, shifted something fundamental in my healing process. I'd built a chosen family in Seattle that constantly surprised me with its genuine support. Jordan had become my closest friend, introducing me to hiking groups and music venues, helping me navigate Seattle's social landscape. My technical mentor at work, Prisha, regularly invited me to family dinners where her children showed me their schoolwork with the same enthusiasm my parents had never shown for mine. Deepika from legal had become a workout partner and confidant, sharing her own complex family history over post-yoga brunches. My professional growth at Technovate had exceeded expectations. 10 months into my role, I'd been promoted to lead analyst for our sustainability investment division, now managing a small team analyzing environmental impact bonds and green energy portfolios. The promotion came with educational benefits I was using to pursue advanced certification in sustainable finance. My apartment had transformed from sparse necessity to genuine home. Walls adorned with local artists' work, bookshelves filled with both professional resources and fiction, a small balcony garden thriving despite my novice gardening skills. Most significantly, I'd established financial independence with clearly defined boundaries. After the failed visit, I'd created structured parameters for family financial interaction. Birthday and Christmas cards contained modest gift cards, never cash. Occasional care packages included practical items but never monetary assistance. Automatic responses greeted any direct requests for loans or investments. My contact with parents had settled into a predictable pattern, monthly phone calls lasting exactly 30 minutes, surface-level exchanges about weather and neighborhood happenings, no discussion of finances or past grievances. I maintained control over these interactions through scheduled timing and prepared talking points, ending calls promptly when old patterns emerged. This arrangement wasn't ideal family connection, but it represented significant progress from both complete estrangement and toxic entanglement. The most profound change resided within me, recognizing that parenthood exists through actions, not merely biology. My parents had contributed genetic material and basic survival necessities, but the nurturing, guidance, and unconditional support that defined true parenting had come from mentors, friends, and ultimately, myself. Sitting on that mountainside, watching eagles soar on thermal currents, I acknowledged the complex truth that setting boundaries wasn't selfishness, but self-preservation. The graduation photos finally displayed on my bookshelf weren't the family portraits I'd once imagined, but images with Lily's family and my economics professors, people who'd shown up not from obligation, but genuine care. A year into my Seattle life, I'd begun paying forward the support I'd received by mentoring first-generation college students through a local nonprofit. Meeting monthly with Seattle area teens navigating college applications without family guidance, I shared practical advice about scholarships, work-study balance, and financial aid forms. More importantly, I offered living proof that family limitations needn't determine future possibilities. Sometimes the families we're born into aren't equipped to nurture our particular dreams, I told Marissa, a brilliantly talented young artist whose parents discouraged her creative pursuits. That doesn't mean your dreams aren't valid or achievable. Mountain shadows lengthened as afternoon progressed toward evening. I packed my hiking gear and began the descent, each step reinforcing a truth I was still learning to fully embrace. Sometimes the most loving choice in a relationship is distance. Space that allows both parties to be authentic, rather than perpetuating harmful patterns. The weight I'd carried wasn't just expectations I couldn't meet, but the exhausting performance of pretending those expectations were reasonable. Relinquishing that burden hadn't just allowed me to walk away. It had given me wings to soar toward authentic connection and purpose. As I drove back toward Seattle, sunset painted Olympic mountains in gold and purple against darkening sky. My phone contained 3 missed calls from my mother about a neighbor's new fence encroaching 6 inches onto their property. Tomorrow I would return that call, maintaining the boundaries that protected my hard-won peace while still acknowledging our connection. Tonight, however, belonged to celebration. 1 full year of choosing myself, 1 full year of building. A life aligned with my values rather than defined by others' limitations. That night, standing on my small balcony watching fairy lights cross Puget Sound, I posted my first graduation photo publicly. Me in cap and gown with Lily's family, genuinely smiling despite red-rimmed eyes. The caption read simply, "1 year later, I understand that sometimes walking alone across a stage isn't failure, but the first step toward finding your true path." Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between family expectations and your own well-being? I'd love to read your stories in the comments below. Remember, sometimes the bravest thing isn't staying. It's having the courage to walk away from situations that continually hurt you, even when those situations involve people you love. Please like this video if my story resonated with you, subscribe for more real-life journeys, and share with someone who might need permission to prioritize their own healing. Thank you for walking this path with me today.
I'm Miranda, 34, and last Saturday I attended my sister Vanessa's 10th anniversary party. The ballroom sparkled with champagne flutes and laughter as I admired her seemingly perfect marriage. But when I returned from the bathroom, I caught Vanessa's reflection in the window. Her hand hovered over my glass, dropping something inside with a secretive smile. My stomach knotted as childhood memories resurfaced. Without hesitation, I switched my glass with her husband Nathan's. If you've ever faced betrayal from family, where would you draw the line? Like and subscribe to join me on this journey of shattered trust. Growing up with Vanessa wasn't easy. 3 years my senior, she turned everything into a competition. When I made the cheerleading squad in high school, she convinced the captain I had cheated on tryouts. When I brought home my first boyfriend, she mysteriously started tutoring him in chemistry. 2 weeks later, they were dating. Our parents chalked it up to sisterly rivalry, but it felt more sinister than that. Despite everything, I desperately wanted a normal relationship with my only sibling. Every betrayal was followed by tearful apologies and promises to change. I'd forgive her, hoping this time would be different. It never was. When Vanessa met Nathan Calloway during her senior year of college, I was genuinely happy for her. He was kind, successful, and most importantly, he seemed immune to her manipulative tendencies. When they married 3 years later, I stood beside her as maid of honor, truly believing she had finally matured. Over the decade of their marriage, our relationship improved somewhat. We weren't best friends, but we managed civil family gatherings and occasional shopping trips. I convinced myself the past was behind us. Last month, I received a beautifully embossed invitation to their 10th anniversary celebration. The timing couldn't have been better. I had just been promoted to senior account manager at my marketing firm, but my personal life was in shambles after ending a 2-year relationship with a man who couldn't commit. A glamorous party seemed like the perfect distraction. The celebration was held at the Bellevue, the city's most exclusive hotel. Vanessa had spared no expense. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting a warm glow over the crowd of about 60 guests. Ice sculptures shaped like swans flanked a champagne fountain. A string quartet played softly in the corner. Our parents, Robert and Susan, greeted me warmly when I arrived. Dad looked uncomfortable in his tuxedo, but beamed with pride watching Vanessa work the room. Mom kept straightening the centerpieces when the staff wasn't looking. "Miranda, you made it." Vanessa air-kissed my cheeks when she spotted me. Her Vera Wang dress probably cost more than my monthly salary. "Love the dress. Rental, right?" she whispered with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "It's great to see you too," I replied, ignoring the jab. "Everything looks amazing." "Well, some of us have successful marriages to celebrate," she said, squeezing my arm just a little too hard. "You'll find someone eventually. Maybe stop being so picky?" Before I could respond, Nathan appeared at my side. Unlike Vanessa, his smile seemed genuine. "Miranda, you look fantastic." He hugged me warmly. "How's the new position treating you?" "It's challenging but exciting," I said, grateful for the subject change. "We need to catch up properly. Save me a dance later." Nathan winked. Vanessa's expression tightened. "Darling, the Andersons just arrived. We should greet them." She practically dragged him away, glancing back at me with narrowed eyes. Throughout the cocktail hour, I mingled with familiar faces. Vanessa's college roommate Bethany mentioned how brave I was for attending solo. Our cousin Tyler, perpetually inappropriate, asked if I was still playing the field. I maintained my smile through it all, nursing a single glass of wine. I noticed something odd as the evening progressed. Nathan kept looking in my direction, his expression unreadable. Whenever he and Vanessa stood together, They maintained physical distance despite the anniversary celebration. When they thought no one was watching, they exchanged tense whispers. Something wasn't right in paradise. During dinner, I was seated at a table with distant relatives and Vanessa's work colleagues rather than at the family table. Nathan frowned when he saw the arrangement but didn't comment. As servers cleared the entree plates, he suddenly appeared at my side. "Mind if I steal you for a moment?" he asked. "There's someone I want you to meet." Instead of introducing me to anyone, he led me to a quiet corner near the terrace doors. "I needed a break," he confessed. "Vanessa's been on edge for weeks planning this party." "It turned out beautifully," I offered. "Yeah, well, appearances matter most to her." His voice held a bitterness I'd never heard before. "How have you really been, Miranda?" We hardly talk anymore without Vanessa interrupting. Something in his tone made me pause. "Is everything okay between you two? This is a strange conversation to have at your anniversary party." Nathan ran a hand through his hair. 10 years is a long time to maintain a facade. I thought marriage would change her, but some people just. He stopped abruptly, looking over my shoulder. "She's watching us." I turned slightly and caught Vanessa staring, champagne flute clutched so tightly I feared it might shatter. The look in her eyes sent a chill down my spine. "I should get back," Nathan said. "But let's catch up properly soon. I miss having someone normal to talk to." He squeezed my hand and walked away. As I watched him return to his wife, I couldn't shake the feeling that something significant was unfolding beneath the perfectly orchestrated celebration. After my conversation with Nathan, I found myself hyper-aware of every interaction between the anniversary couple. They performed their roles perfectly when the spotlight was on them, sharing tender glances during the anniversary toast and laughing appropriately at the best man's speech about their courtship. But in unguarded moments, I caught glimpses of strained silence and cold stares. During the first dance, Nathan whispered something that made Vanessa's smile falter. When the song ended, she immediately separated from him, making a beeline for her college friends while he retreated to the bar. Curious, I casually positioned myself within earshot of Nathan's conversation with the bartender. "Make it a double," he requested, sliding his empty glass forward. "Rough night?" the bartender asked. "Rough decade," Nathan muttered, before noticing me and straightening his posture. "Miranda, join me for a drink." I accepted his offer, ordering a sparkling water. Pacing myself, I explained. "Long night ahead. Smart woman. Unlike some people I know." He lowered his voice. "Can I confide something? Promise it won't get back to Vanessa." I nodded, intrigued. "This marriage is suffocating me. Has been for years." He stared into his scotch. "I've stayed for appearances, family expectations, our shared business interests. But lately, I've been wondering if any of that is worth the constant walking on eggshells." "Have you tried counseling?" I asked, genuinely concerned. 3 different therapists. Each time, Vanessa charms them completely, then refuses to go back when they eventually suggest she might contribute to our problems. He shook his head. "You know how she is better than anyone. The woman the world sees isn't the real Vanessa." The conversation felt inappropriate yet irresistible. "Why are you telling me this? Tonight of all nights?" "Because you're the only person who might actually understand. You grew up with her." Nathan leaned closer. "Last month, I mentioned maybe separating for a while. Just to clear my head." She went ballistic, then suddenly turned eerily calm and suggested this anniversary party instead. Said we needed to remember why we fell in love. A tap on my shoulder interrupted us. Vanessa stood there, her smile tight. What an intense conversation. Sharing old family stories, Nathan. Her eyes darted between us suspiciously. "Just catching up," he replied, draining his glass. "Your sister's company is refreshing." Vanessa's laugh sounded like breaking glass. "Well, the Martins are asking for you. Something about that golf membership." She practically pulled him away from the bar. As they walked off, Vanessa whispered harshly to Nathan, Though I couldn't hear her words, her expression spoke volumes. When she glanced back at me, the hatred in her eyes was unmistakable. Needing a moment alone, I headed to the restroom. The quiet sanctuary gave me space to process Nathan's revelations. Had Vanessa's competitive nature escalated to something more dangerous within her marriage? The thought made me uneasy. After touching up my makeup, I returned to the ballroom. The celebration had shifted to dancing, with clusters of guests twirling across the floor. I spotted our parents swaying gently to a slow song, looking content. Making my way to my assigned table, I noticed my champagne glass had been refilled in my absence. Beside it sat a beautiful chocolate-covered strawberry on a napkin, with my name elegantly written on the corner. A small card read, "For my favorite sister. Love, V." The gesture seemed oddly conciliatory given the tension earlier. As I reached for the glass, movement in the large ornate window beside me caught my eye. The reflection showed Vanessa standing several feet behind me, watching intently. She didn't realize I could see her. In the reflection, I witnessed my sister approach my table, glance around furtively, then reach into her clutch. Her hand emerged with something small that she quickly dropped into my champagne. The object dissolved almost instantly. Her lips curved into a satisfied smile before she disappeared into the crowd. My blood ran cold. What had she put in my drink? And why? My mind raced through possibilities, each more disturbing than the last. I remembered a disturbing incident from college. Vanessa's roommate had been offered the internship Vanessa wanted. The night before the roommate's first day, she became violently ill after a celebration dinner Vanessa had prepared. The illness lasted just long enough for Vanessa to contact the company and offer to step in temporarily. The temporary arrangement became permanent. Vanessa had never admitted to anything, but the timing was too convenient to be coincidental. I'd convinced myself it was an isolated incident, a product of youthful ambition rather than malice. Now, staring at my contaminated champagne, I realized I'd been naive. Whatever rivalry she felt toward me had never disappeared, merely gone underground. But what was her motivation now? I was no threat to her marriage, despite Nathan's confiding in me. Unless she thought I was. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Vanessa had seen Nathan talking with me, perhaps even overheard parts of our conversation. In her mind, that might constitute betrayal. She'd always been possessive of her relationships, pathologically so. I carefully examined my champagne, tilting it slightly under the ambient lighting. A faint residue clung to the inside of the glass, nearly imperceptible unless you were looking for it. Whatever she'd added had dissolved almost completely. My heart pounded as I considered my options. Confronting her publicly would create a scene and might be dismissed as sisterly drama. Confronting her privately might put me at risk if she was desperate enough to drug me. Ignoring the situation seemed dangerous. I needed to understand what I was dealing with, and more importantly, I needed evidence of what she'd done. My fingers trembled slightly as I considered my next move. The champagne glass sat before me, its contents potentially dangerous. Guests swirled around the ballroom, oblivious to the drama unfolding at my quiet corner table. What had Vanessa put in my drink? I doubted it was lethal, knowing my sister's calculating nature. More likely something to embarrass me, perhaps make me sick or behave inappropriately. Vanessa had always preferred psychological torture to physical harm. Either way, I had no intention of finding out firsthand. I needed to gather evidence while protecting myself. A plan formed in my mind, risky but necessary. If I could switch glasses with someone, I could observe the effects while avoiding them myself. But with whom? The answer came immediately. Nathan. The symmetry felt appropriate. If Vanessa intended to hurt me because of her jealousy over Nathan's attention, letting him experience her duplicity seemed fitting. More importantly, as her husband, he deserved to know what she was capable of. Executing the switch would require perfect timing. I scanned the room and spotted Nathan near the gift table, temporarily alone. Vanessa was across the room, engrossed in conversation with her in-laws. This might be my only opportunity. I stood, casually lifting my contaminated glass. Nathan, I called as I approached. We should make a toast to the happy couple. He looked up, surprised. Another one? Haven't we had enough speeches tonight? Not a public toast, I clarified, standing close. Just between us. To 10 more years. I raised my glass slightly. He shrugged, reaching for his half-empty whiskey tumbler from the nearby table. Why not? Though I'm not sure I'll survive another decade. I positioned myself between Nathan and the rest of the room, using my body to shield my actions. Actually, I said, speaking louder than necessary, champagne seems more appropriate for toasting than whiskey. Would you mind swapping? Just for the toast. Before he could properly respond, I placed my champagne flute in his hand and took his whiskey. The move was smooth, practiced, like we'd rehearsed it. To happiness, I said meaningfully, and to truth, whatever it might reveal. Nathan looked confused, but played along, touching his glass to mine. To truth, he echoed, then sipped the champagne. I pretended to drink the whiskey, merely wetting my lips. Over Nathan's shoulder, I caught Vanessa watching us, a satisfied smile playing on her lips when she saw me drinking the champagne. She didn't realize the switch had occurred. Everything okay? Nathan asked, noticing my tense expression. Perfect, I assured him. But you might want to finish that champagne before Vanessa comes over. She seemed annoyed we were talking earlier. He rolled his eyes, but complied, draining the glass in one long swallow. Happy now? I should get back to mingling. 10 years of marriage means at least 40 hands to shake tonight. I nodded, watching him carefully for any immediate reactions. Nothing yet. Thanks for humoring me. As Nathan walked away, I discreetly set his whiskey down on a passing server's tray, unwilling to consume anything that had been unattended at this party. Vanessa approached me almost immediately. Enjoying yourself? She asked, her voice honey-sweet while her eyes assessed me for signs of whatever she expected. Absolutely, I replied evenly. Your husband was just keeping me company. Such a thoughtful man. A flash of anger crossed her features before she controlled it. Yes, Nathan's always been overly accommodating to everyone. A weakness of his, really. I wouldn't call kindness a weakness, I countered. Vanessa's smile turned predatory. You seem remarkably steady on your feet. Champagne, not to your liking. The confirmation of her intentions sent ice through my veins. It was delicious. Nathan thought so too when we traded drinks for our toast. For a split second, genuine confusion replaced her smug expression. Then understanding dawned, followed by alarm. You what? Traded drinks, I repeated innocently. Is there a problem? You had no right, she hissed, her composure cracking. You don't understand what you've done. Actually, I think I understand perfectly, I replied, keeping my voice level. The question is, does Nathan? Vanessa's face paled. Her eyes darted across the room, locating her husband who was now talking with our parents. This isn't over, she warned before hurrying away. I maintained my calm exterior while processing what had just happened. Vanessa had confirmed my suspicions without realizing it. Now I needed to watch carefully to understand what I'd saved myself from and what Nathan would experience instead. Over the next 30 minutes, I observed subtle changes in Nathan's behavior. His movements became less coordinated. He loosened his tie, complaining of heat. During a conversation with my father, he lost his train of thought mid-sentence. When the band played a popular dance song, he enthusiastically joined the dance floor, his movements uncharacteristically uninhibited. Vanessa hovered nearby, repeatedly trying to steer him toward the exit. Darling, you're tired. We should thank everyone and leave, I overheard her saying. Nonsense. Nathan replied too loudly. I'm having a wonderful time. First time tonight, actually. He twirled away from her, rejoining the dancing crowd. I maintained a safe distance, watching the situation unfold while considering my next steps. Whatever Vanessa had used wasn't immediately debilitating, but it was definitely affecting Nathan's inhibitions and coordination. Combined with the alcohol he'd already consumed, the effects were amplifying quickly. Vanessa cornered me near the dessert table, her carefully crafted image fracturing. "What have you done?" she demanded, voice quivering. "I didn't do anything," I replied calmly. "I simply avoided drinking whatever you put in my glass." Nathan, unfortunately, wasn't so lucky. "You saw nothing," she insisted, desperation evident. "I saw everything, Vanessa. The reflection in the window showed you quite clearly." Her expression hardened. "It was just a mild sedative. To help you relax." "You've been so tense lately." "A sedative? In my drink without my knowledge? That's assault, possibly worse if combined with alcohol." "Don't be so dramatic," she scoffed. "I was trying to help. You've been miserable since Jackson dumped you." The mention of my ex stung, but I refuse to be baited. "We both know that's not true. You saw Nathan talking to me and jumped to conclusions. Your jealousy is pathological, Vanessa." Her eyes narrowed. "He's my husband. You were hanging on his every word, looking at him with those sad, lonely eyes. Did you think I wouldn't notice?" The truth of her distorted perception hit me. "You seriously think I'm interested in Nathan? He's my brother-in-law." "Men are easily manipulated by attention from new women," she spat. "Even sisters." Before I could respond, a crash from the dance floor drew our attention. Nathan had stumbled into the gift table, sending carefully wrapped packages tumbling. His speech was slurred as he apologized profusely, attempting to right the fallen gifts, but making the situation worse. "This is your fault," Vanessa hissed before rushing to damage control. I stood frozen, watching the scene unfold. My impulsive decision had created consequences I hadn't fully anticipated. As concerned murmurs spread through the crowd, I realized the night was about to implode spectacularly. The elegant anniversary celebration deteriorated rapidly after Nathan's collision with the gift table. At first, guests assumed he'd simply had too much to drink, an embarrassing but forgivable offense at his own party. Vanessa managed to guide him to a chair, whispering fiercely in his ear while maintaining a strained smile for onlookers. "Just need some water," Nathan announced loudly, his words running together. Feeling weird all of a sudden, our father approached, concern etched on his face. "Everything all right, son? Perhaps some fresh air would help." Nathan attempted to stand but swayed dangerously. Room spinning. "Wasn't even drinking much." His confused gaze found me across the room. "Miranda? When did you get a twin?" A ripple of uncomfortable laughter moved through the nearby guests. Vanessa's face flushed with humiliation as she struggled to maintain control of the situation. "Darling, you're exhausted. We should call it a night," she urged, trying to help him up. Nathan shook his head vigorously, nearly toppling over. "No, don't want to go home with you. You're always watching, controlling." His voice had risen, drawing more attention. Mortification flashed across Vanessa's features. "Nathan, please. You're not yourself." "Maybe I am myself." "First time in years without the mask," he slurred, gesturing wildly. 10 years pretending. "I'm tired of pretending." Guests began exchanging concerned glances. The band awkwardly continued playing, though many had stopped dancing to watch the unfolding drama. Nathan suddenly lurched to his feet. "Need bathroom," he mumbled before stumbling in that direction. He made it halfway before collapsing against a waiter, sending a tray of champagne flutes crashing to the floor. "Oh my God," gasped a woman nearby. "Is he having a stroke?" The question sent a wave of panic through the crowd. My mother rushed forward, her nursing background taking over. "Nathan, look at me. Can you tell me what day it is?" His response was unintelligible. Mom looked up at Vanessa. "Has he taken any medication today? Mixed anything with alcohol?" Vanessa shook her head, but her eyes betrayed her. They darted toward me momentarily, filled with accusation and fear. I think we should call an ambulance, Mom announced. Better safe than sorry. No, Vanessa protested too quickly. He's just had too much to drink. We don't need to make a scene. This is already a scene, Dad pointed out. The man can barely stand. As the argument continued, I approached Nathan, who was now sitting on the floor, back against the wall, eyes unfocused. I knelt beside him. Nathan, did you consume anything unusual tonight? Besides alcohol? He blinked slowly, trying to focus on my face. Just drinks. And that champagne. With you. After that, everything went sideways. Vanessa appeared at my side, practically pushing me away. Stop interrogating him. This isn't helping. Actually, it might help the paramedics to know what's in his system, I replied evenly. Her eyes widened in panic. There's nothing in his system. You're being ridiculous. By this time, the hotel manager had been alerted to the situation. We've called emergency services, he informed us discreetly. They should arrive shortly. Would you like to move Mr. Calloway somewhere more private? With help from 2 waiters, Nathan was relocated to a small conference room adjacent to the ballroom. The celebration effectively ended as concerned guests began gathering their belongings, whispering among themselves. My parents insisted on accompanying Nathan and Vanessa to the private room, with me following close behind. Once the door closed, providing privacy from curious eyes, Vanessa rounded on me. This is your fault, she accused. You switched the glasses deliberately. What glasses? Mom asked, confusion evident. What is she talking about, Miranda? I met Vanessa's gaze steadily. Why don't you tell them what you put in my champagne? You did what? Dad's voice boomed in the small room. Vanessa's composure cracked entirely. It was just a mild sedative. Nothing dangerous. She's been so stressed lately, I thought it would help her relax and enjoy the party. You drugged your sister? Mom's voice was barely a whisper, horror evident in every syllable. And then I switched our glasses, I admitted. I saw her do it in the reflection. I didn't know what it was, but I wasn't about to drink it. So you gave it to Nathan instead? Dad demanded, his disappointment now directed at me. I needed to know what she'd done, I explained. And he deserved to know what his wife is capable of. Nathan, still disoriented but following the conversation, looked up at Vanessa. You drugged her drink? Why would you do that? Vanessa's face crumpled. You were paying so much attention to her, confiding in her, looking at her the way you used to look at me. She's my sister-in-law, Nathan mumbled. I was just talking. It's never just talking with her, Vanessa insisted. She's always wanted what's mine. Always. The paramedics arrived before the argument could escalate further. As they assessed Nathan, one asked directly about substances in his system. He may have unknowingly consumed a sedative, I informed them. Mixed with alcohol. The female paramedic's expression hardened. Do you know what kind of sedative? All eyes turned to Vanessa, who seemed to shrink under the scrutiny. Ativan, she finally admitted. Just 1 pill. It's prescribed to me for anxiety. Ma'am, mixing benzodiazepines with alcohol can be extremely dangerous, the paramedic said severely. We need to transport him to the hospital immediately for monitoring. Will he be okay? Mom asked, her anger temporarily replaced by concern. Most likely, but we need to watch for respiratory depression. The combination can be life-threatening in some cases. The gravity of the situation descended on the room. Vanessa began sobbing. I never meant for him to take it. It wasn't supposed to be dangerous. But you meant for me to take it, I reminded her. Not knowing it was there, mixing with whatever I was drinking. The male paramedic looked up sharply. Was this intentional drugging? Yes, I stated firmly, despite Vanessa's pleading look. That's potentially a criminal offense, he informed us. The hospital will likely need to report this to police. As they prepared to transport Nathan, he reached for my hand. Thank you, he whispered, for seeing the truth. All of it. The simple statement carried the weight of years of hidden suffering. I squeezed his hand gently before they wheeled him away. In the aftermath, the conference room fell silent except for Vanessa's quiet sobs. My parents stood shell-shocked, processing the evening's dramatic turn. I think Dad finally said, "We need to have a very serious family discussion." But not tonight. Let's make sure Nathan is stable first. Mom nodded, then turned to Vanessa. You should go to the hospital. He's still your husband, whatever else has happened tonight. Vanessa gathered herself, wiping her tears. This isn't over, she murmured as she passed me. No, I agreed quietly. It's just beginning. The hospital waiting room fluorescent lights cast a harsh glow over our family's fractured facade. Dad paced relentlessly while Mom sat rigidly, her expression unreadable. Vanessa had been permitted to join Nathan once the doctors began treatment, leaving me alone to face my parents' mixed emotions. I still can't believe what happened. Mom finally broke the silence. Both of you. My own daughters. I didn't drug anyone, I reminded her gently. No, but you deliberately gave a drugged drink to Nathan, Dad countered, stopping his pacing momentarily. You could have just poured it out. And then what? I asked. Vanessa would have denied everything. I needed proof of what she'd done. At what cost? Mom's voice cracked. Using Nathan as your guinea pig? The question stung because it contained a kernel of truth. I had made a split-second decision with potentially dangerous consequences. I didn't know what she'd used, I admitted. I assumed it was something to make me look foolish, not something potentially lethal when mixed with alcohol. Before my parents could respond, a doctor in blue scrubs approached. Family of Nathan Calloway? We all stood. How is he? Dad asked. Stable, the doctor assured us. We've administered fluids and are monitoring his vital signs. The combination of lorazepam and alcohol could have been much more serious, but fortunately, the dose wasn't extremely high. Relief washed over us collectively. When can he go home? Mom inquired. We'll keep him overnight for observation. Standard protocol with benzodiazepine and alcohol interactions. The doctor's expression turned serious. I understand there are unusual circumstances surrounding how Mr. Calloway ingested the medication. Hospital policy requires us to report suspected intentional drugging to authorities. Dad nodded grimly. We understand. Thank you, doctor. After he left, we settled back into uncomfortable silence. Eventually, Vanessa emerged from the treatment area, her makeup streaked down her face, designer dress wrinkled. He's resting, she informed us, avoiding eye contact. They've given him something to counteract the effects. Vanessa, Mom began cautiously. What were you thinking? My sister collapsed into a chair, all pretense abandoned. I don't know. I saw how he looked at Miranda. How they were whispering together. It triggered something in me. So your solution was to drug your sister? Dad's incredulity was palpable. It wasn't supposed to harm her. Vanessa insisted. Just make her a little disoriented. Maybe say something embarrassing. I wanted her to stop being so perfect in everyone's eyes. The absurdity of her statement momentarily stunned me. Perfect? You think people see me as perfect? Everyone does. Poor, sweet Miranda who always gets the raw deal from her mean older sister. Miranda who never does anything wrong. Vanessa's bitterness spilled out. Even tonight, after what you did to Nathan, they're still more angry with me. Because you committed a crime, I pointed out. Because you've been doing things like this our entire lives. What does that mean? Mom asked, looking between us. I hesitated, then decided the time for protecting Vanessa had passed. Remember when Vanessa's college roommate got violently ill before her first day at that prestigious internship? The one Vanessa miraculously stepped in to fill. Vanessa's face drained of color. That was different. It was just food poisoning. Was it? I challenged. Or did you ensure she couldn't take the position you wanted? You can't prove anything, she whispered. I don't need to. Tonight proves the pattern. A police officer entered the waiting room, interrupting our confrontation. After identifying himself, he explained he needed statements from everyone involved. One by one, we were interviewed in a small consultation room. When it was my turn, I recounted everything exactly as it had happened. The officer's expression remained neutral throughout, but he took detailed notes. "Will charges be filed?" I asked when I'd finished. "That depends on several factors," he explained, including whether Mr. Calloway wishes to press charges against his wife. Administering a controlled substance without consent is a serious offense. The interview complete, I returned to the waiting room. Hours passed in tense silence before a nurse informed us that Nathan was awake and asking for me specifically. Vanessa started to object, but the nurse was firm. The patient requested to speak with Miranda alone. Following her to Nathan's room, I was struck by how vulnerable he looked connected to monitoring equipment. His complexion was ashen, his normally perfect hair disheveled. "Hey there," I said softly, approaching his bedside. "Some anniversary party, huh?" His attempt at humor fell flat, his voice raspy. "I'm so sorry, Nathan. I never intended for you to get hurt." He waved away my apology. "You exposed the truth. That's worth a night in the hospital. The police are taking statements. They mentioned potential charges." Nathan sighed deeply. "That's actually why I wanted to talk to you. I need you to understand something." He shifted, wincing slightly. This isn't the first time Vanessa has done something like this. My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "Not drugging, specifically, but the controlling behavior, the jealousy, the manipulation. It's been our entire marriage." His eyes met mine, filled with a sadness I'd never noticed before. "About 2 years ago, I started keeping records. Conversations, incidents, things that made me question my own sanity." "You've been documenting her behavior?" He nodded. "My therapist suggested it. To confirm I wasn't imagining things. The recordings, the journal entries, they paint a clear picture of emotional abuse." The term hung heavy in the hospital room. I'd suspected Vanessa was difficult, competitive, even malicious at times, but abuse was a word I'd never associated with my sister. "Why stay?" I asked quietly. "Fear, mostly. Not physical fear. Fear of failure, of public humiliation. Our finances are completely entangled through the business. And part of me still loves the woman I thought I married." He closed his eyes briefly. "Tonight changed everything. She crossed a line that can't be uncrossed." A nurse entered to check his vital signs, temporarily halting our conversation. After she left, Nathan continued, his voice stronger. "I'm not going to press charges. Nathan, what she did was criminal. I know, but a public legal battle would destroy both our lives. What I am going to do is separate from her. Immediately." His determination was evident. "I wanted you to know because I'll need allies. People who understand what she's capable of." The weight of his trust settled on my shoulders. "Of course. Whatever you need." "Thank you." He squeezed my hand. "For seeing the truth. For having the courage to act on it. If you hadn't switched those glasses, I might have spent another decade in that marriage, slowly losing myself." As I left Nathan's room, the magnitude of the evening's revelations washed over me. My sister wasn't just competitive or jealous, she was potentially dangerous. The facade of her perfect marriage had completely shattered, revealing something darker beneath. In the waiting room, I found Vanessa alone, my parents having gone to find coffee. "How is he?" she asked, a complex mixture of emotions in her voice. "Awake. Talking. Reconsidering his entire marriage." She flinched at my bluntness. "Did he tell you he's going to press charges?" "No, but he did tell me he's leaving you." The color drained from her face. "He can't. We're partners in everything. The business, the house, our entire lives." "You should have thought about that before drugging my drink," I replied simply. Vanessa's eyes filled with fresh tears. "I didn't mean for this to happen. You never do. But you keep making choices that hurt people, Vanessa." At some point, the excuses stopped mattering. As my parents returned with coffee, a heavy silence fell over our fractured family. The night's events had torn away any pretense of normalcy, exposing truths that could never be reburied. 1 week after the disastrous anniversary party, our family gathered at my parents' home. The invitation, delivered via my father's stern phone call, made attendance non-negotiable. Sunday dinner, 2 o'clock. Everyone will be there, and we're going to talk about what happened. No excuses. The familiar suburban house felt different as I approached the front door. Childhood memories of running through the sprinklers with Vanessa, building blanket forts in the living room, and holiday celebrations filled with laughter seemed to belong to different people entirely. Mom answered my knock, enveloping me in a tight hug before ushering me inside. "Your father's in the dining room. Vanessa's already here." The formal dining room, typically reserved for Thanksgiving and Christmas, signaled the gravity of the occasion. Dad sat at the head of the table, posture rigid. Vanessa occupied a chair to his right, eyes downcast. An untouched glass of water sat before her. "Where's Nathan?" I asked, noticing his absence. "Not coming," Dad answered. "This is family only today. We'll deal with the marriage situation after we address what happened between you two." I took a seat opposite Vanessa, maintaining a safe distance. Mom completed our square, settling beside me with a supportive pat on my arm. "I've spent 58 years on this earth," Dad began, his professor voice in full effect. "I've taught thousands of students, written books on conflict resolution, and counseled countless couples through difficult times. But never did I imagine I'd need to mediate between my own daughters over something like this." Vanessa stared at her hands folded in her lap. I maintained eye contact with Dad, accepting his disappointment without flinching. "Vanessa," he continued, turning toward my sister. "What you did was not only illegal but deeply disturbing. I need to understand why." My sister's carefully constructed facade had crumbled since the hospital. Without her designer clothes and perfect makeup, she looked smaller somehow, vulnerable. "I don't have a good explanation," she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "Try," Mom encouraged, gentler than Dad, but equally firm. Vanessa took a shaky breath. "I've always felt like I had to fight for everything. For attention, for success, for love. Nothing ever came easily to me the way it seemed to for Miranda." I started to protest, but Dad silenced me with a look. When I saw Nathan talking to her, something just snapped. Tears welled in Vanessa's eyes. "Our marriage has been struggling for years." He's been distant, critical. When he looked at Miranda with such interest, such ease, I felt replaced. Again. "So you decided to drug your sister?" Dad's question hung in the air. I wasn't thinking clearly. I just wanted her to stop being so perfect for one night. To show everyone she isn't always the good one. Vanessa wiped at her tears. "The pill was supposed to make her loopy, maybe say embarrassing things. I never intended for Nathan to take it instead." "Whether Nathan or Miranda took it doesn't change your intent," Mom pointed out. "You deliberately tried to harm your sister." "I know," Vanessa whispered. "I know it was wrong. I've been seeing a therapist every day this week. She thinks I may have borderline personality disorder with narcissistic features." The clinical terms seemed to hang in the air between us. "That might explain some of your behavior, but it doesn't excuse it," Dad said firmly. "I understand that. I'm not asking for excuses." Vanessa finally looked up, meeting my eyes directly. "Miranda, what I did was unforgivable. I've spent my life competing with you, resenting you, trying to take what you had instead of appreciating what I had. I'm truly sorry." In 34 years, I'd never heard Vanessa offer a genuine apology. Part of me wanted to accept it immediately, to return to the sisterly relationship I'd always craved. But another part, perhaps the wiser part, recognized this pattern. "I appreciate your apology," I said carefully. "But I need more than words this time, Vanessa. This wasn't a childhood squabble or petty jealousy. You could have seriously harmed me, and you did harm Nathan." "I know," she acknowledged. "I'm committed to getting help. Real help this time. Nathan told me this wasn't an isolated incident. I continued, watching her reaction carefully. He described a pattern of controlling behavior throughout your marriage. Vanessa flinched but didn't deny it. We both contributed to the dysfunction. But yes, I recognized my behavior was problematic. That's an understatement. Dad interjected. He's moved out, Vanessa. Filed for legal separation according to your mother's friend at the courthouse. Fresh tears spilled down my sister's cheeks. I know. He won't return my calls. His lawyer handles all communication now. Can you blame him? Mom asked gently. No, Vanessa admitted. I destroyed his trust. Maybe beyond repair. The conversation continued for hours, peeling back layers of resentment, jealousy, and dysfunction that had characterized our family dynamic for decades. Mom and Dad acknowledged their role in enabling Vanessa's behavior, having dismissed her competitive nature as normal sibling rivalry rather than addressing the deeper issues. As the afternoon sun began to set, casting long shadows across the dining room, I finally voiced the question that had been forming throughout our conversation. Where do we go from here? Dad leaned back in his chair, exhaustion evident in his features. That depends on all of us, but especially you two. Vanessa looked at me tentatively. I'd like to rebuild if you're willing. I understand if you're not. For the first time in our adult lives, I saw genuine vulnerability in my sister's eyes. Not manipulation, not calculation, just raw emotional honesty. I can't pretend this never happened, I told her. And I can't immediately trust you again. I understand, she nodded, accepting my boundaries. But I continued, I'm willing to try family therapy, to see if there's something worth salvaging between us. Relief washed over Vanessa's face. Thank you. That's more than I deserve. It's not about deserving, I clarified. It's about choosing to break unhealthy patterns instead of perpetuating them. As we prepared to leave, Vanessa approached me in the hallway. Nathan's lawyer delivered divorce papers yesterday, she confided. He's citing emotional abuse and the drugging incident. Are you contesting it? I asked, studying her reaction. She shook her head. No. He deserves his freedom. I just hope someday he can forgive me, even if we never reconcile. The admission surprised me. Perhaps the therapy was already having an effect. One day at a time, I offered, not quite ready for physical contact, but acknowledging her pain with a nod. As I drove home that evening, I reflected on how quickly life could change. 1 week ago, I'd attended what should have been a celebration of love and commitment. Instead, it had exposed decades of dysfunction and set us all on entirely new paths. Nathan had called me earlier that day, sounding stronger and more decisive than I'd ever heard him. He'd moved into a downtown apartment and was seeing his own therapist to process the relationship trauma. For the first time in years, I'm making my own choices, he'd told me. It's terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. I understood exactly what he meant. Setting boundaries with Vanessa, refusing to minimize her actions, felt like reclaiming pieces of myself I hadn't realized were missing. The road ahead would be difficult, but at least it would be honest. 6 months passed before I agreed to meet Vanessa one-on-one. We chose neutral territory, a quiet cafe downtown, each arriving separately. I spotted her at a corner table, absent were the designer labels and perfect makeup that had once been her armor. Instead, she wore simple jeans and a sweater, hair pulled back in a casual ponytail. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat across from her. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't, I admitted. Our family therapy sessions are one thing, with Mom and Dad as buffers. This feels different. Vanessa nodded in understanding. I appreciate your honesty. That's something my therapist keeps emphasizing, the importance of truth even when it's uncomfortable. The months of intensive therapy had changed her in subtle but significant ways. The competitive edge that had defined her for decades had softened. She made eye contact differently now, more direct yet less challenging. How are you really doing? I asked, genuinely curious about her journey. Some days are better than others, she confessed. The diagnosis helped make sense of patterns I've struggled with my whole life. Borderline personality disorder explains the emotional instability, the fear of abandonment, the black and white thinking. But understanding it is just the first step. And the treatment? Dialectical behavior therapy twice weekly. Medication for anxiety. A lot of journaling. She stirred her tea absently, learning to sit with uncomfortable emotions instead of immediately reacting to them. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. I nodded, acknowledging her efforts. And the divorce? A flash of pain crossed her features. Finalized last month. Nathan was fair in the settlement, more than fair considering everything. We sold the house, divided the business assets. Clean break. Do you still talk to him? Only through lawyers, by his choice. I respect that boundary now. Vanessa looked up, meeting my eyes directly. He's seeing someone new. Did you know? I hesitated before answering truthfully. Yes, we've kept in touch. Coffee every few weeks. Rather than the jealous reaction I might have expected before, Vanessa simply nodded. Good. He deserves happiness. I'm glad he has a friend who understands what he went through. The simple statement, delivered without resentment, illustrated how much had changed. What about you? She asked. Mom mentioned you're dating someone? Early stages, I confirmed. His name is Daniel. Elementary school principal. Completely different from anyone I've dated before. Different how? I considered the question. Emotionally available. Direct about what he wants. No games. I smiled slightly. He has healthy boundaries, which I'm learning to appreciate more and more. That's really great, Miranda. You deserve that kind of relationship. The sincerity in her voice touched something in me. For perhaps the first time in our adult lives, Vanessa seemed genuinely happy for my happiness, without comparison or competition. As our conversation continued, we carefully navigated the new terrain of our relationship. There were awkward moments, old patterns that threatened to resurface, but we both recognized them more quickly now. I've been thinking a lot about that night, Vanessa said eventually. Trying to understand what I was thinking, how I justified something so terrible to myself. And the borderline thinking was definitely part of it, the black and white perspective where I saw you as a threat to my marriage. But it was more than that. She took a deep breath. I've spent my entire life feeling like I wasn't enough. Not pretty enough, not smart enough, not worthy enough of love. Instead of addressing that emptiness, I tried to fill it by taking what others had or by proving I was better. The vulnerability in her admission was palpable. The irony, she continued, is that by trying to control everything and everyone around me, I lost the things that mattered most. My marriage, your trust, my self-respect. I reached across the table, not quite taking her hand, but reducing the distance between us. You're doing the work now. That counts for something. Thank you, she whispered. I know I have a long way to go. I may never fully deserve your forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't about deserving, I said, echoing the wisdom I'd gained through my own therapy. It's a choice I make for my own peace. I'm not there yet, but I'm working on it too. As we prepared to leave, Vanessa hesitated. There's something else I wanted to tell you. I've been offered a job in Seattle. A fresh start, away from all the memories and people I've hurt here. The news surprised me. Are you going to take it? I think so. My therapist believes geographical distance might help establish new patterns while continuing treatment virtually. She smiled sadly. Plus, it gives everyone here space for me while I continue healing. When would you leave? Next month, if I accept. I wanted to tell you in person. She fidgeted with her purse strap. I'm not running away, Miranda. I'm trying to be responsible about my recovery. I considered her words carefully. I think it might be good for you. A chance to define yourself outside of our family dynamics. Relief washed over her features. That's exactly it. Thank you for understanding. As we said goodbye on the sidewalk outside the cafe, Vanessa hesitated before asking, "Would it be okay if I hugged you?" The question, so careful of my boundaries, demonstrated more growth than any therapy update could have. I nodded, allowing a brief embrace before stepping back. "Take care of yourself, Vanessa." "You too, Miranda." "I'll keep in touch if that's okay." "One step at a time," I replied honestly. Driving home, I reflected on everything that had happened since that fateful anniversary party. One impulsive, terrible decision had set off a chain reaction, bringing painful truths to the surface, but ultimately forcing necessary change. Nathan had emerged stronger from the dissolution of his marriage, finally free to pursue his own happiness. My parents had confronted their role in enabling destructive family patterns and were working to change them. Vanessa was actively addressing her mental health issues instead of projecting them onto others. And I had found my voice, learning to establish boundaries and demand respect even from family. The journey hadn't been easy for any of us, but perhaps it had been necessary. Family relationships are complex, woven from threads of love, history, obligation, and sometimes hurt. The glass I switched that night had shattered more than just an anniversary celebration. It had broken open the carefully constructed illusions we'd all been maintaining. The truth, painful as it was, provided an opportunity for authentic healing, not just bandaged wounds that would inevitably reopen. Sometimes the hardest lesson is realizing that love alone isn't enough, that it must be paired with honesty, respect, and accountability to be truly healthy. As Vanessa embarks on her new life in Seattle, and I continue building mine here, I wonder if true forgiveness will eventually be possible. Not the kind that pretends harm never occurred, but the deeper forgiveness that acknowledges pain while choosing to move forward unburdened by resentment. I don't have that answer yet, but I'm open to discovering it, one day at a time. Has someone in your family ever betrayed your trust in a way that forced you to reevaluate your entire relationship? How did you navigate that difficult terrain? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe if this resonated with you and share with someone who might need to hear that setting boundaries with family is not only okay, but sometimes necessary for everyone's healing. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that even the most painful experiences can lead to unexpected growth when we face them with courage and honesty.